promised if I won this tonight, I'd announce the name of my new record. It's called Born This Way. I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause God makes no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way.
Lady Gaga's debut studio album, The Fame, was founded on the principle of the glitz and glam of fame and viewing it as an art form, something that could be molded to be whatever one wants it to be. It defined fame as something that was internal rather than an external concept. The follow-up and companion piece, The Fame Monster, was about the dark side of fame, the other side of the coin, showcasing it through the lens of Gaga's fears, with each of its 8 songs representing a specific fear of hers. Her proper second studio album, Born This Way, was about making a statement. In many ways, I've always viewed it as an evolution of The Fame Monster, aesthetically and visually, as it borrows a lot from the previous era and builds upon it. Musically, the same could be said, taking many of the sounds from The Fame Monster and pushing them further while adding even more musical variety. The range of Born This Way's sound is broad in scope and pulls from many different sources of inspiration, including typical synth pop and dance pop styles that Gaga was known for, while also adding new styles into the mix, such as heavy metal, disco, house, and rock and roll, amongst others. Born This Way has a particularly timeless sound to it. As classic as hit songs like Just Dance and Poker Face are, they sound very much like they came straight out of 2008. Much of Born This Way sounds like it could have been crafted at any point in the last 40 years and still sound current no matter what the time period. This timeless sound is undoubtedly thanks to the influences of several classic yet timeless artists that Gaga has cited as key inspirations or influences for the album, such as Whitney Houston, Bruce Springsteen, Madonna, Prince, Queen, and Kiss. While accepting the award for Best Pop Vocal Album for The Fame Monster, Gaga specifically thanked Whitney Houston.
I wanted to thank Whitney because when I wrote Born This Way, I imagined she was singing it because I wasn't secure enough in myself to imagine I was a superstar. So Whitney, I imagined you were singing Born This Way when I wrote it. Thank you.
In addition to its timeless sound, Born This Way is arguably Gaga's vocal peak in my opinion. Going back to this record, I'm astonished at the sheer power behind her voice. I've always known Gaga to have powerful vocals. I think it's one of the more underrated aspects of her artistry. But on this record in particular, she shows a vocal range that we normally don't hear unless she's live. Marry the Night, the climax of Hair, You and I, and The Edge of Glory are great examples of this. Born This Way was all about pushing the boundaries, something that was hard to believe for a woman who had already stepped so far outside of the box in pop music thus far in her career. Lady Gaga is far more direct on Born This Way. There's a very clear message that she's sending out this time around. The Fame Monster concerned itself with Gaga's internal struggle, while Born This Way is much more outward and uplifting in its themes, despite the album's relatively gothic aesthetic. Quite frankly, many of Born This Way's tracks betray its deceivingly dark aesthetic. If the Fame Monster served to analyze Gaga's fears in life, then Born This Way serves as the next logical step, which was her conquering those fears and pushing forward. Songs like the title track, Marry the Night, Hair, and The Edge of Glory are all incredibly powerful and uplifting anthems, beacons of light that you would have never seen on The Fame Monster. Gaga's music and the messages in them were rather subtle up until this point in her career, cunningly clever in her execution. She had the entire world singing a song about bisexuality, and I'm sure less than a fraction had a clue of what Poker Face was really about. However, with Born This Way, the messages were very clear, with Gaga being far more direct with her lyrics and what she wanted to convey. Quite frankly, she already had the world in her hands by this point. There was no need to hide behind conventional pop and clever wordplay anymore. Boasting themes of acceptance, sexual orientation, gender identity, feminism, religion, freedom, and individuality, Gaga was very deliberate about getting her point across with the straightforward lyricism this time around. I want it to be an attack, an assault on the issue, because I think, especially in today's music, everything gets kind of washy sometimes and the message gets hidden in the lyrical play. Harkening back to the early 90s when Madonna, En Vogue, Whitney Houston, and TLC were making very empowering music for women in the gay community, all kind of disenfranchised communities. The lyrics and the melodies were very poignant and very gospel and very spiritual, and I said, that's the kind of record I need to make. That's the record that's going to shake up the industry. It's not about the track, it's not about the production, it's about the song. Anyone could sing Born This Way. It could have been anyone. Government Hooker, one of the many standout deep cuts on the album, explores themes of female sexual empowerment through a metaphor referencing U.S. President John F. Kennedy's alleged affair with Marilyn Monroe. Americano was influenced by the events surrounding the repeal of the controversial California Proposition 8, a ballot proposition that defined marriage as a union between opposite-sex couples, thereby prohibiting and invalidating same-sex marriage throughout the state, as well as the growing struggles of Mexican immigrants. It combines mariachi, house, and techno genres with elements of Latin music. Lyrically, the song talks about Lady Gaga's infatuation with a woman. This song alone captures so much of what Born This Way as an album is all about, maybe even more so than the title track itself. The way Gaga was able to string together so many impactful issues into a song, which in itself is such a multifaceted combination of many musical styles, speaks to her talent. Hair was inspired by Gaga's experience as a teenager, in which, being forced to dress a certain way by her parents, she found the only way to express herself was through her hair. The song is ultimately about using one's hair as a means of ultimate expression. It's about liberation and the ability to change one's ways. On Bloody Mary, one of the many tracks on the album with religious themes, Gaga assumes the role of Mary Magdalene, a biblical figure that Gaga herself considered to be a true feminine force. The song is noteworthy for being the sixth and final single from Born This Way, being released a full 11 years after the album's initial release due to a resurgence in popularity in 2022, following the song's inclusion in the Netflix series Wednesday. Born This Way is much more than a pop album. It was very much a statement by Lady Gaga, who herself stated that this time around her music was so much deeper than a wig or lipstick or a effing meat dress. A woman who up until this point was often known more for her fashion and eccentricity rather than her music was making sure that she created music with a message this time, something that couldn't be ignored. It wasn't about being provocative this time around, it was about starting a conversation. The album's title track was released as the lead single on February 11, 2011. An anthem of empowerment for the LGBTQ+ community, minorities, and women, Born This Way is regarded by many critics and publications as one of the most inspirational LGBTQ+ songs of all time. It hit number 1 in over 25 countries, including the United States, notably being the 1,000th song in Billboard's entire history to hit number 1. Selling 8.2 million copies worldwide, Born This Way is one of the best-selling singles of all time, alongside Just Dance, Poker Face, and Bad Romance, giving Gaga 4 of the best-selling singles of all time from just her first 2 albums. It is undoubtedly one of her most well-known songs and a staple in 2010's pop. The nexus of Born This Way and the soul of the record reside in this idea that you were not necessarily born in one moment. You have your entire life to birth yourself into becoming the ultimate potential vision that you see for you. Who you are when you come out of your mother's womb is not necessarily who you will become. Born This Way says your birth is not finite. Your birth is infinite. 2 days after the song's release, Gaga debuted the song live at the 53rd Grammy Awards. Prior to the performance, she arrived on the red carpet in a giant incubating vessel, emerging from the vessel at the beginning of the performance. It was an artistic statement meant to symbolize the birth of a new race without prejudice. Born This Way's similarities to Madonna's 1989 song Express Yourself were a point of criticism for many and stirred up a bit of controversy in itself. Many pointed out that both songs shared similar chords, similar tempos, and the same uplifting theme. Gaga acknowledged that while the chord progression of the two songs are similar, it was quite a common one, and insisted that the similarity was coincidental, if anything. When Madonna was asked about the similarities between the two songs, she simply lamented that it felt quote-unquote reductive. A full year after Born This Way's release, Madonna would embark on her MDNA world tour in support of her album of the same name, and during the second act of the show, she performed Express Yourself, incorporating Born This Way into the performance, immediately followed by the song She's Not Me from her 2008 album Hard Candy. This was interpreted by many to be a not-so-subtle diss towards Gaga. Judas was released as the second single from Born This Way on April 15, 2011, being a bit more similar in sound to previous songs in Gaga's catalog like Poker Face, Love Game, and Alejandro. Many critics praised the song, even some saying that it should have been the lead single from its parent album rather than the title track. The song has a few different overlapping meanings, being about a woman in love with a man who betrayed her. It also embodies the incidents that have haunted Gaga in the past, and its core meaning refers to the negative parts of her life that she cannot escape. Gaga has further explained that the song was also about honoring one's inner darkness in order to bring oneself to light. She also explained that the lines spoken during the song's house influence breakdown talk about her as being beyond redemption, a comment on the quote-unquote traditional views of what a woman should be. Judas had strong opening sales numbers, but was notably less successful when compared to Gaga's previous singles. It just barely broke the top 10, debuting at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song's music video was condemned by the Catholic Church due to its religious imagery. Gaga notably stirred up controversy with the church the previous year with the music video for Alejandro. The final track from Born This Way, titled The Edge of Glory, was released as the third single from the album on May 9, 2011. Inspired by the death of her grandfather, the song speaks about one's last moments in life. The song received critical acclaim and is regarded by many to be one of Gaga's best in her entire discography. It's a powerfully uplifting anthem, bursting with energy and soul, being the perfect finale to Born This Way in my opinion. The song was Gaga's 10th consecutive top 10 hit in the United States, peaking at number 3. You and I followed as the fourth official single on August 23, 2011. The rock and roll tune was notably revealed to the public long before Gaga even announced Born This Way. After leaked footage of her performing the song in June 2010 was received positively, Gaga added the song to the setlist for her The Monster Ball tour. She stated that the song was about the most important person she's ever met. The song's promotional material and its accompanying video featured the debut of Gaga's male alter ego, Joe Calderone. She notably performed the song as Joe at the 2011 MTV Video Music Awards, remaining in character for the entirety of the ceremony, even going so far as to present the Michael Jackson Video Vanguard Award to Britney Spears while still portraying her rowdy male alter ego. Marry the Night, the opening track from Born This Way, was released on November 11, 2011 as the fifth and final single, not counting Bloody Mary, which was released 11 years later. The song is an ode to Gaga's love of nightlife and partying, as well as a dedication to her hometown of New York City. Marry the Night was actually intended to be the lead single from Born This Way, however it was canceled in favor of the title track. It was then considered for the third single spot, but The Edge of Glory was released instead. Marry the Night is honestly one of the most important songs on Born This Way in my opinion. It serves so many great purposes for the album and the era. It's a phenomenal opener to the album, but at the same time it was such a perfect finale to what was one of the biggest pop eras of the 21st century. It truly felt like one final hurrah and send-off for Born This Way. The song unfortunately fared the worst chart-wise out of all the Born This Way singles, peaking at number 29 and ending her then streak of 11 consecutive top 10 singles. Born This Way, the album, was released on May 23, 2011, debuting at number 1 on the US Billboard 200, selling an astonishing 1.1 million copies in its first week, making it only the 17th album in history to sell over 1 million copies in its first week. The album made Gaga only the 5th woman in history to sell over 1 million albums in the first week, after Whitney Houston, Britney Spears, Norah Jones, and Taylor Swift. It was Gaga's first number 1 album and was the third best-selling album in 2011 in the United States. It was ranked amongst some of the best albums of the year by several publications such as Rolling Stone, The Guardian, Slant Magazine, MTV, and more. Rolling Stone would also rank Born This Way as the 11th greatest album of all time by a female artist. The same publication later included it in their 2020 update of the 500 greatest albums of all time at number 484. The album received Grammy Award nominations for Album of the Year, Best Pop Album, and Best Pop Solo Performance for You and I. Being her third consecutive Grammy nomination for Album of the Year, Gaga is the first artist since the Beatles to receive 3 consecutive nominations in that category. Born This Way represents to me a certain ambition and passion that is missing in modern day pop music. I honestly didn't appreciate this album when it came out, and the era went way over my head for some reason. I was much younger then. Perhaps I didn't have the mental or emotional maturity to get it. It was never my favorite Gaga album. I definitely did not hate it. I was somewhat indifferent to it at the time. I liked a lot of the songs, but I didn't appreciate it as a whole body of work like I did her other works like The Fame Monster. But over the years, I've listened to it more and more, and I can truly hear the passion in this 14-track masterpiece. Born This Way is unbridled creativity and artistic devotion captured in a single package. It's actually very hard to describe this album in just one way. It's so many things. Born This Way plays several roles. It's uplifting, it's avant-garde, it's thought-provoking, it's passionate, it's frenetic, it's dark. A lot of the traits that Born This Way possesses directly contradict other traits within the album, but somehow as a whole, it is a cohesive work of art. Above all else, Born This Way serves as a soundtrack to those who felt like they didn't fit in. What Gaga set out to do with this record was to uplift. Despite its dark, gothic aesthetic, Born This Way is very much a light in the pop music landscape, one that served to provide a beacon to those who felt left behind, overlooked, and unloved. Amongst so many themes, I feel the ultimate takeaway from Born This Way is simply loving oneself and taking advantage of every moment in one's life, living in the moment and being who you are regardless of what the world tells you. I honestly ignored the title track for a long time because I thought it was corny, if I'm being completely honest. But looking back, that was such a small-minded and immature way of looking at it. Lady Gaga wanted to bring light to the world with this song and its parent album, and I can only respect and adore her for that. Born This Way is truly one of the greatest pop albums that this world has ever been graced with, a masterpiece that could only come from one of the greatest pop stars that this world has ever known.